Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Conservative opposition, I want to welcome our friends from the United States and Mexico to Ottawa for the third round of negotiations. This is an important trade agreement for Canada because 1 out of every 5 jobs in Canada depends on trade. So Conservatives are in an unusual situation in that we support the government in their efforts to secure a good deal with NAFTA. The U.S. Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, are Conservative achievements. So unlike when they were negotiated and the Liberals opposed these agreements, we support them and we support the government's efforts with respect to getting a deal for Canada. As the official opposition, however, we do have some concerns, and they've been consistent since the first round, and they seem to be consistent in the third round as they stand now. We do not see the government fighting for key industries to the level we would expect. As an Ontario MP, I've not heard the government yet articulate the importance of the auto industry and a fair and successful rules of origin outcome for the 140,000 Canadians that work in the auto and auto parts industry. The auto industry itself served as the starting point for free trade. The auto pact was the model that became a North Americanized industry, and that should still be the case with renegotiated NAFTA. Softwood lumber, resource industry, agriculture, we've yet to see the government articulate clear objectives for Canada in these negotiations. Perhaps that will come out in the next few days. We hope it will. But until then, our main concern with Canada's priorities in the NAFTA negotiations has been a lack of focus on employment and jobs.
Merci, Erin. Bonjour tout le monde. Donc, oui, en premier lieu, on aimerait saluer nos collègues américains et mexicains qui sont ici à Ottawa pour la négociation, le troisième monde de négociation. Comme mon collègue Erin vient de mentionner, actuellement, nous, l'enjeu, c'est qu'on supporte le gouvernement. On supporte le gouvernement dans la négociation de l'ALENA, bien entendu. Vous savez que pour nous, les conservateurs, l'ALENA a été négocié par les conservateurs à l'époque, ainsi que la majorité des traités de libre-échange qui existent actuellement pour le Canada avec les pays à l'étranger. Donc, pour nous, oui, c'est important. Là, maintenant, on demande au gouvernement de s'aider lui-même aussi et de prendre en charge les choses. Au niveau de l'Ontario, il y a beaucoup de problématiques avec l'automobile, mais nous, on vient de voir en fin de semaine, pour le Québec, la gestion de l'offre. Donc, tout ce qui concerne les producteurs de lait au Québec, il y a un enjeu majeur. Les Américains ont clairement identifié cet enjeu-là comme étant une chose qu'ils voulaient avoir l'abolition. Donc, on demande au gouvernement, on demande au premier ministre de prendre position. Il a déjà mentionné qu'il supportait la gestion de l'offre. Là, maintenant, on doit l'entendre. On doit avoir une position claire du gouvernement dans la négociation, de nous mentionner et de dire aux Canadiens que c'est un enjeu important.
Jobs exactly. What are you looking for from the government in terms of what they should be saying publicly about the job situation?
Well, when Minister Freeland laid out her priorities for Canada a month and a half ago, before the first round of negotiations, she did not mention the importance of the auto industry and rules of origin for automobiles and auto parts. She did not mention the resource sector or softwood lumber, for instance. There's almost 1 million jobs indirectly related to trade in just those 3 areas alone. So we've seen an absence of time spent and absence of emphasis by the government. If you look at Secretary Ross's report that the Americans are relying on for auto release last week, they are certainly trying to set the table to suggest that the current situation in NAFTA is unfair. When that's not the case, we should be refuting statistics that we have difficulty with. We should be setting the table ourselves, particularly when the table is in Ottawa for this round of negotiations, to show how American companies benefit from current situation with respect to auto parts or assembly in Ontario. So we want to see more of an emphasis on these key industries by the government, because I think that sets the environment from which collaboration, negotiation take place.
So what would happen if the Americans, from what we understand, want perhaps a greater U.S. content? Right now you have to be 62.5% in the auto sector from North America. They may want more, but who knows? So what is your fear? Like, what is your concern if they press for those kind of demands?
Well, it could make our North American industry less competitive with the world. Right now, the 62% content is a North American standard, so that recognizes the globalized nature of auto players. They manufacture and assemble around the world. We've been able to establish a very effective regime where that 62% could be made up by parts in Canada, final assembly in the United States, or in Mexico. I think we have to view the industry as integrated. It has been for decades. And so to suggest that changes to that or suggestions that a large portion of that should just be parts or assembly in the United States would actually set our industry back. So I'd like to hear the government putting that out there alongside industry to set the table for negotiations to show that if we want to modernize, let's not do it in a way that actually makes the North American industry uncompetitive.
Vous avez mentionné la gestion de l'offre parmi vos préoccupations. Vous n'avez quand même pas l'impression que la gestion de l'offre va servir de levier de négociation ou de modèle d'échange?
Alors, écoutez, la gestion, la négociation implique plusieurs enjeux, plusieurs départements. Je commence à avoir des termes anglophones. Donc, mais maintenant, au niveau de la gestion de l'offre, écoutez, c'est un enjeu qui est, pour le Québec surtout, qui est vraiment primordial. Le gouvernement de Justin Trudeau a lui-même promis de toujours protéger la gestion de l'offre. Nous, de notre côté aussi, on l'appuie évidemment. Donc, à ce moment-là, lorsqu'on a vraiment une menace directe des États-Unis qui nous dit « vous allez abolir la gestion de l'offre », on fait quoi à ce moment-là? C'est là qu'on a besoin d'entendre notre premier ministre vraiment se lever et dire, écoutez, là, si vous voulez négocier puis accepter d'enlever la gestion de l'offre, il faudrait dire pour donner quoi en échange. Donc, c'est là-dessus qu'il y a de l'opacité qu'on n'entend rien.
Vous n'êtes pas demandé au gouvernement de négocier sur la place publique, ce qui n'est pas une chose courante.
Non, mais il y a des éléments qu'on doit quand même se lever et mentionner aux Canadiens, écoutez, on va être là pour vous. Actuellement, mon collègue parlait d'emploi, les gens sont inquiets dans l'industrie automobile, dans l'industrie des fermes. Les gens ne savent pas. Donc, on s'attend à quoi? On attend un résultat, on va attendre à la fin, on va avoir le résultat. Voici le résultat, puis on est rendu là. Donc, à chaque étape de négociation, s'il y a un enjeu qui est vraiment critique pour les travailleurs canadiens, bien, le gouvernement doit se lever et dire non, on est là pour vous défendre. Peut-être qu'ils ne le réussiront pas à la fin à avoir ce qu'ils voulaient, mais au moins démontrer qu'ils sont là pour les travailleurs en premier lieu.
Est-ce qu'il y a des éléments du discours de la ministre Freeland ou encore ce que vous avez entendu de la bouche du premier ministre qui vous laisse peut-être entendre qu'ils seront prêts à sacrifier la gestion de l'offre en partie?
La problématique, c'est qu'on n'entend rien de concret. C'est vraiment un discours qui est très évasif, qui n'amène pas à nous démontrer qu'ils sont en position de force, qui vraiment veulent travailler pour les Canadiens. Donc, on est là plus dans des beaux discours, mais sans vraiment avoir une position ferme, avoir une fermeté. Oui, en négociation, il faut en prendre et en laisser, mais actuellement, on ne sait même pas ce qu'on veut prendre d'un côté. Donc, est-ce qu'on est prêt à sacrifier sans savoir ce qu'on veut vraiment? C'est ça la position qu'on n'a pas.
Don't you think the government has made it clear that it wants to protect supply management? I mean, your colleague is saying that it's maybe not that clear, but don't you feel that the government has said, yeah, we believe in our supply management system, we want to protect it?
You're right. In the first speech on priorities, Minister Freeland did mention supply management almost 2 months ago. We've since not seen the government, as I said, set the table ahead of negotiations to show how that industry and the thousands of families that rely on it must be safeguarded in negotiations. I would add le gouvernement de M. Mulroney a négocié l'ALENA tout en respectant le système de gestion de l'offre. So it is possible. The Mulroney government achieved a fantastic success with U.S. free trade and then NAFTA while respecting our unique system of supply management. So what we'd like to see, because obviously we are not at the negotiation table, and I've said to Minister Freeland we want our negotiators to do well. They are the best in the world. We'd like to see the government champion and define the agenda in key areas publicly so that the table is set in our favor. Right now, we're seeing the opposite done in the United States, both on auto and with some states raising supply management.
Mercredi, il y aura un point de presse de la ministre, du négociateur américain, M. Lighthizer, qui sérieusement, depuis le début de la négo, ne fait pas du tout dans la dentelle. Là. Vous, c'est quoi votre inquiétude la plus grande pour ce point de presse qui s'en vient mercredi? La suite des choses, mais le bilan qu'on devra faire jusqu'à maintenant?
C'est sûr qu'actuellement, à chaque ronde de négociation, il n'y a pas vraiment d'éléments qui sont clairs qui sont donnés en résultat final. Mais s'il fallait que mercredi, on arrive avec une résultante qui dirait, bon, ben, par exemple, la gestion de l'offre sera abolie, sans avoir négocié d'autres éléments plus avantageux pour le Canada, ça serait vraiment incroyable. Il ne faut pas que ça arrive un élément comme ça. Mais je m'attends à rien encore mercredi parce que actuellement, on n'a jamais rien de concret qui sort de...
Mais à vos yeux, est-ce qu'il y a des compromis acceptables que le Canada peut faire dans ces négociations? Des choses sur lesquelles on est prêt à négocier justement pour faire des gains ailleurs?
Oui, comme j'ai dit, le gouvernement de M. Mulroney a négocié tout en respectant notre système pour les femmes familiales. On doit faire ça maintenant avec l'ALENA. It's possible to advance your objectives and to show the Americans how their oversupply of milk currently happening in the United States does not justify a change to a very good functioning system over the last 25 years.
Si je peux me permettre, au printemps dernier, j'ai fait plusieurs rencontres à Washington pour différents sujets et j'abordais le point de la négociation de l'ALENA. Et pour les Américains, une vingtaine de membres du Congrès et des sénateurs, pour eux, il n'y avait pas d'enjeu entre le Canada et les États-Unis. Pour eux, c'était toujours une problématique États-Unis-Mexique. Donc, maintenant, il faut déjà même les allumer au fait que, oui, il peut avoir, si la négociation des éléments change, il peut avoir un impact négatif envers le Canada. Mais ça, au niveau des Américains, ce n'était pas déjà quelque chose qui était acquis pour eux. Donc, pour nous, l'ALENA, la façon dont l'ALENA était construite depuis l'ère Mulroney est encore efficace sur plusieurs points. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'il faut vraiment protéger nos acquis et voir à ne pas nécessairement rouvrir des éléments de l'ALENA qui pourraient être nuisibles alors que tout était efficace.
How much are you concerned that the overall thrust of the negotiations are driven by a prime minister who's often tweeted that it's a bad deal, he wants to get rid of it? Like how much
Prime
of this,
Minister or President?
Did I say Prime Minister? I meant President. But how much of this is politics and how much of this is reality, do you think?
Well, look, I think I came from the private sector where I was involved in negotiations. And what parties normally do is put forward key elements that they want to reach a negotiated outcome on and bring them into each round of negotiation. Canada put forward a range of issues, all of them important, but they weren't focusing on key industries that employ hundreds of thousands of Canadians. My own personal feeling is that because Canada has been championing a range of issues, the Americans have not yet heard the issues they want to drive to a conclusion on. So that's probably why we're in the third round of negotiations, and there's a sense with some of the Canadian negotiators that the Americans have not outlined their priorities yet. It's because we didn't try and meet on those key priorities from day one. I think that's a shortcoming. As I said, if the government changes their focus and starts talking about the importance of a North American integrated auto industry, you'll hear praise from the Conservative government because we want to see a good outcome for those industries.
So do you think they focused on the wrong things, i.e. labor standards, environmental standards, gender equity? I'm just trying to guess what you're saying. What do you say?
I think those are all very important things, but in a time where the new U.S. president and even the last U.S. president did not put a price on carbon, like Mr. Trudeau is doing, to think that in the context of NAFTA negotiations they will suddenly do that, I think is naive. So if we're using negotiating time on issues that we're likely not going to reach an outcome, that is crowding out issues that we need to be fighting for. So I'd like to see the minister and the prime minister fighting for industries like auto, like softwood, like our supply managed sectors, to make sure we drive towards a successful outcome.
Is there a transparency issue with what's actually going on?
I understand and sympathize with the position Minister Freeland is in. She probably doesn't want to invite her political opposition to the table. I've suggested if we were brought in the loop more, perhaps our opposition role would be a little more illuminated. She's taken that back with her. I have a very good relationship with her, and I have a lot of respect for her, as I do our chief negotiator, Mr. Verhoeven. Our job as an opposition is to take the priorities we hear the government talking about and suggest where they should be pushing more. And my colleague and I today have talked about a few industries that we've yet to see the government take seriously, although we're seeing the U.S. define the debate with respect to these issues. I want to see Canada define the debate, particularly for a round that Canada's hosting.
Did Ed Fast, the former trade minister for CETA, take in the opposition critics? I don't think so.
There were the CETA negotiation, the European Trade Agreement negotiation, did engage stakeholders and opposition politicians to a degree never seen before, but not to the negotiation table. And as I said, I understand why there's a challenge here for the government. They don't want to negotiate the deal on the floor of the House of Commons. I understand that. The challenge is their public articulation of priorities have not included the items we've said. Yet we see commentary from our friends in Mexico and the United States championing their industry. I'll leave you with this thought. There are thousands of Canadian families in the resource industry worried about that industry in Canada. They hear Mexico bringing their resource industry to the table in the first few rounds, yet they don't see Canada bringing forward the importance of our resource industry at a time we see Energy East faltering. They see a government slowing down approvals, capital leaving the country. So it worries a lot of Canadians to hear the Mexicans fighting for their jobs more than Canada appears to be. If the government changes their tune, we might as well. Thank you very much.